Koetsier, but hey, no, who's counting? No worries, no worries. You're still here. Wow, awesome, appreciate it, excellent. We're gonna be talking about retargeting. We're gonna talk about retargeting in the B2B world, and we have Carolyn Tsay, who does this at HP Software, $4 billion unit, and we've got Adam Berke from AdRoll. So my first experience with retargeting was, as I mentioned to Adam a little while ago, early on in the retargeting world, when I got, I visited a site for a story I was doing, and it was a fashion site, and for months thereafter I was followed by large women in plus-size clothing everywhere I went on the web. But it's gotten much smarter since then.
Sounds like my actual life.
Excellent. So we're going to talk about integrating retargeting with a complete mix of marketing automation, in this case Pardot, e-commerce, not one but 3 separate instances of Salesforce, and a whole unifying marketing data backend and much more. Maybe you should start, Carolyn, with a little bit of context. Talk a little bit about what you do, what you sell, and who you do it for, who you target.
Great. Thanks, John. So I run the e-commerce business for HP Software. It's about $4 billion in revenue annually. It's quite significant, though we're the little-known organization within HP. We've been building a whole new brand, identity, and web platform for marketing and selling our software online. So I came into HP about 1.5 years ago. Before that, I was with Yahoo and also with IBM. And I have a brand new organization of talent. I brought in lots of folks from the outside, from companies like LinkedIn, Salesforce, Yahoo, Atlassian, and New Relic, some of the more innovative B2B companies or consumer internet companies. The types of software that we offer on our platform include application security, development, testing, and monitoring software, big data and analytics as well.
So the interesting thing that I was thinking about when we were talking earlier was that you're selling B2B, you're selling big ticket software to large companies in some cases, in other cases some smaller companies or startups, but you've built a team that's very B2C. You've built a team that's very consumer-oriented, and you're taking a consumer-oriented approach. Can you talk about that a little bit in terms of why and how you decided on that and what it works?
Yeah. So that was definitely on purpose, going after B2C type talent, folks from mostly consumer internet background. I mentioned to John and Adam before, I see what consumer internet was doing maybe 10, 15 years ago that B2B enterprises are trying to do now. And what I mean by that is around the focus on the end user or customer ultimately. So when I first walked into HP, a lot of the product marketers I spoke with said, hey, you know, Caroline, we've got personas. We target CEOs, CISOs, CTOs, and CIOs. And I said, okay, where are the actual hands-on people who are using our software? And they said, well, we just haven't gone after those folks, and we don't really know how to. And so consumer internet has always been focused on that end user. We're watching every movement on a website, tracking all the online activity, seeing conversions. We can see all of that engagement. So really going after consumer, even though you're in a B2B play, is one thing I mean by what consumer internet was doing 10 to 15 years ago that B2B is doing today. I think another one is around rapid iteration development and feeding and learning of insights back into your marketing and into your product development, into any kind of activities where you're trying to grow and learn and improve. That is really key as well.
Cool, cool. So you're using retargeting for 3 separate purposes. Can you talk a little bit about those and why retargeting works for those?
Yeah. So Adam's team has been great to work with. I think we're guinea pigs. Just a couple of weeks ago, we implemented audience development. It's given us a great opportunity to reach more segments of brand new customers than I think we ever have before. So we can go after publishers that AdRoll now works with to pixel their sites, and for us to go after particular users of certain job titles, industries, or categories. This expands our reach beyond just retargeting of someone who comes to our site. So that's been a tremendous initiative for us and very interesting to see the metrics soon. It's still early. I would say one other thing that we're doing with AdRoll is around how do we figure out what people are doing across the purchase funnel on our site, and how do we actually target them with the right type of content at the right time. So for example, we know when someone actually signs up for trial and is using our product. And that essentially is the pivot point for us to decide whether we want to focus someone on product information and content, or whether we want to give them advertising around purchasing the product. So we're watching them all the way through the funnel. We worked with AdRoll on segmenting those users and being able to retarget them depending on the activity engagement of the site. And then, of course, A/B testing is a layer across everything that we do too.
Cool, cool. So Adam, we talked a little bit about multi-device. It's a multi-device world. I'm on one right now. You're on a different one during the day, et cetera, et cetera. And you talked a little bit about the ability to retarget regardless of which device somebody is actually using. Can you talk a little bit about how that works and how that's helpful?
Sure, yeah, I mean, so our mission as a company is to help businesses collect their most valuable data asset, which is their customer data, segment it in ways that make sense for their business, and act on it wherever people go. And increasingly, people are spending more time on mobile devices. We all know that. The problem is that connecting the dots between what somebody does on a desktop machine and then what they do on a mobile device, whether it be a phone or a tablet or a phablet, and whether that be in the browser environment or the app environment or Android, and you can drive yourself absolutely crazy. And there's probably 12 people in the world that understand all the intricacies and how you can tie all those different things together from a targeting perspective, from a tracking perspective, from an attribution perspective. So what I generally recommend marketers do is think about it in terms of like, what is my marketing objective? Don't say I want to be on, Safari for the sake of being on Safari. What am I trying to actually accomplish? Am I trying to drive app downloads? Okay, that's something that we can then talk about. How can we leverage your data? What data can we leverage to drive app downloads? Okay, I have a lot of app downloads, but I'm not seeing the engagement that I want. Okay, great. How can we identify a segment of users that we want to re-engage, and then where can we re-engage them? So, I think the problem of the fragmented user can really only be solved in thinking about it from the point of view of what is my marketing objective, instead of saying, okay, where are all the little nuggets and problems and places where it breaks down, because it does.
So what does that mean practically? If I'm on my laptop during the day and I research something about one of Carolyn's solutions, and then I happen to be on my tablet on the sofa in the evening,
yeah.
How does that work practically?
Yeah, I mean, it could work practically in a number of ways. From our point of view, what we've decided to do is take an approach of definitive IDs and leverage our partnerships with folks like Facebook and Twitter to evolve our targeting around that definitive user ID. Yeah. So that is the kind of the easiest, most straightforward, 100% close to accurate way to say, okay, that person is logged in on Facebook on desktop. We now know who that person is. When they're on their mobile device, we've got this nice native engaging ad unit on their mobile phone we can use for a mobile app install ad, or maybe a piece of content if it's a B2B advertiser. So there's a number of ways you can solve the problem, but then I would kind of turn it around like, yeah, practically it could work in a number of ways depending on what you're actually trying to accomplish.
That's a good question. Let's ask Carolyn that. How does that change your marketing and advertising behavior based on whether somebody might be here or on their tablet or on their laptop and time of day?
Yeah. So we do offer a few software products in the space of mobile development and mobile performance testing. So for those particular users or visitors to our site, we are tracking whether they're coming in through a tablet, mobile device, and a browser, or a desktop. And for those particular users, we are targeting them more heavily with those solutions. So that's one of the things we do look at. I would say that in general, though, software is not usually something that's easy to download on a tablet or mobile device just yet, except for the mobile solutions we have to offer. So there's some focus on that right now, but not for all of our portfolio just yet.
So when retargeting first came out, it was pretty interesting, cool, and it was something that you did sort of over there, and you got some results, and okay, that was cool. You've integrated into an entire complex web of technologies that you talked about. You talked about Pardot, you talked about 3 instances of Salesforce, you talked about, I think it was Berke on your back end and everything. Can you talk about how you've integrated that and how you use that in building your customer journeys?
Yeah. So I think the AdRoll team has faced this because we've been working with them on implementation of tracking all the way, so we could see the whole entire customer journey and view of the funnel through to bookings and revenue. That's really important for us, not just pipeline, but bookings and revenue and what happens after that, even around renewals. And we've got about 15 sources of data, including from three different instances of Salesforce that we use. We have a very complex business, very large business at HP Software, so it just so happened that we were on 3 different systems. We are looking to consolidate, but ultimately, as you can see, that prospect lead information is sitting in different places, opportunity data sitting in different places, and we want to tie that all the way back to the campaigns that we're running. So we have partnered with Good Data, which runs Berke, which is one of our software analytics platforms used by Facebook and Zynga. And we've put that all into one place so we can have one source of truth and a BI intelligence and analytics reporting warehouse to give us that into-one view.
Cool. And you told me, and this kind of ties into what you were just talking about, that you're maniacal about data. Can you ever have too much?
Yeah, sometimes you can have too much if you can't analyze it. But yes, we are maniacal about data. We look at all of the activity all the way through. I mentioned that end-to-end customer view down to revenue and bookings and renewals. We're also looking kind of pre-purchase at whether someone engages and responds back to technical engagement managers that we have. So we have a hybrid pre-sales, sales development, inside sales model where we do reach out, and day 1, day 3, day 10, if someone hasn't responded, or if they do, we're tracking those responses, what kinds of questions they have, do they need technical help or not, and trying to see how we can resolve that and engage with the customers and continue on from there. Interesting.
When we talked earlier, Adam, you're talking about conversions aren't always just conversion events that we've traditionally thought about. And that's certainly especially true in the complex B2B environment, right? It's not somebody buying a pair of shoes and there's the ad and you visit the site and you see it again, you see, oh, I'll buy the pair of shoes. Can you talk about that multiple stage effect?
Well, sure. I mean, there's a couple things I would say about that. One, it sort of starts to open up a topic of attribution, which is probably a whole nother panel. I would say, those metrics are incredible and amazingly detailed and in depth, and I'm sure it's taken a lot of time to get that data sanitation in place. I mean, my recommendation in general when I talk to customers using platform and implementing multi-channels from a marketing perspective is just, when you're thinking of attribution, when you're thinking of measurement, not to let perfection be the enemy of good, and knowing, okay, using pure last click and separating each channel in a silo, we know that's wrong. How can we make that slightly better and not paralyzing ourselves, waiting to know, okay, well, this mobile touch point had exactly a 10% contribution on the fact that they become a lead, and then we don't know till 3 months later how valuable that, you're never going to be able to make decisions and improve. So, kind of making iterative steps from that perspective, and then kind of getting back to the actual root of your question. What are some of the other things that we see people do? I mean, from a B2C perspective, there's the most underutilized segment I think that people look at is existing customers. There's a little bit of this notion of like exclusion lists and things like that in retargeting. There's the old axiom that it's 5 times less expensive to retain an existing customer than it is to convert a new one. Start with that conversion segment. What can you do with that? Are there other products that they might maybe not right away, but should you keep that pool of users going so that when you have a sale or launch a new product, you do a more broad campaign? So all sorts of creative things you can do with your customer data on the B2C side, uploading CRM segments, matching that to cookies or social IDs, and creating messages for dormant users that haven't even been to your site in a while. So we call that CRM retargeting. And then on the B2B side of things, I think retargeting is an awesome opportunity for content marketing, particularly when you combine programmatic advertising with some of these nice native ad units that are in feed, like Facebook's news feed, like Twitter's timeline. People are used to consuming content there, so don't necessarily shove a conversion event down the person's throat. Give them content which they're used to consuming in that environment, bringing them through the funnel, but doing so in a really targeted, really intelligent way, so that what you're providing to them is interesting to them, is useful, and is going to provide your thought leadership and kind of help frame the messaging the way you want them to be thinking about it.
That's really cool. That's awesome insight. Appreciate that. You mentioned that you used Berke on the back end to kind of tie everything together, have one source of truth. Can you talk a little bit briefly about what goes in and what comes out? I mean, we get so much data. We have so many dashboards. We have so many different campaigns we're doing in many, many different places with many, many different companies. What's that look like a little bit if you can?
Yeah. So all of our marketing mix across all channels, so even PR type events, information from leads that we capture goes into this database and this warehouse. And we are looking at basic reporting data, but I think more importantly, we're looking at analytics information to help drive decisions that we want to make or actions that we want to take. So one very specific example of something that I can get out of our BI platform is around the content marketing piece. So the nurturing and creation of campaigns where we go and retarget folks based on the activity they've done on the site. We've actually seen improvements. If I normalize the spend between display retargeting along with SEM, we actually have seen a 10% increase in downloads of a particular white paper for a product with, get this, which is, I think, even more outstanding, which is a decrease in cost per download by 40% compared to SEM. So 10% increase in downloads, but at 40% off. That's been one tremendous insight that tells us, hey, we should go spend more here.
Excellent, cool. So those are some metrics, and my next question was going to be about some metrics. And do you have any others that you can share in terms of why do you do retargeting? What kinds of ROI do you see on that?
Yeah. Retargeting, I think just based on this definition, we see just greater potential to convert, so that probability to convert, because there's been some kind of prior engagement that we see somewhere, and now it's not just on our website, but everywhere else with other publishers. It's just so important for us to be able to heavily optimize and go after the individuals or the end users of our software that we want, and in mass too. So no longer do we just wine and dine the CEOs, the CISOs, the CTOs, and reach out individually. We have our field reps doing that with our large accounts, but we can go after lots of different people in a very targeted way online.
And it's really cool because you never know who actually makes the ultimate decision, why that person makes that decision, who brought that to him or to her, and what happened to make that happen. Cool. Adam, I wanted to ask you a question about something that Carolyn had talked about a little bit earlier. It used to be when you wanted to retarget, you put some code on your website, you let it sit there for a while, maybe a couple weeks, maybe a couple months, depends how much traffic you have, and then you had some opportunity to retarget. Carolyn mentioned something about, I forget what the name of it was, audiences or whatever it was, but the ability to essentially choose some audiences that you wanted to quote-unquote retarget. Can you talk a little about how that works, what that is?
We have a ton of stuff in that area right now that are kind of in the early stages of alpha that I won't talk about, but I will, a lot of it will be coming very soon. You'll probably getting called about it. But it fits in very much to our viewpoint that retargeting isn't simply, let's identify this set of users and then just like keep showing them, the shoes that they looked at. That this is a data set that we want to leverage in a very intelligent way. And when you think of it from that perspective, there are all sorts of other ways you can extend that data set that still ties to the intent. And I think identifying publishers that also share intent signals with your audience is a great way to start moving up the funnel. If you think of retargeting as the very bottom of the funnel, these are people who are aware of your brand, they're in market, they've been to the site. There's kind of one circle outside of that those users are also showing intent for things that are related to your product, and you can start capturing proprietary audiences by identifying the right publishers, collecting that data, and then adding that as a layer to your retargeting campaigns.
Cool. And I see that we're out of time. So thanks so much, Adam. Thanks so much, Carolyn. Really appreciate it. Thank you for your time.